The deadliest mistake wasn't running out of firewood. You know, the most dangerous moment of winter didn't arrive with the first snowfall. It arrived when the fire stopped burning. In medieval Europe, firewood wasn't just fuel. It was heat, light, cooked food, safe water, and, well, survival itself. And here's the forgotten truth most people miss. Medieval families didn't survive winter because they had more firewood. They survived because they stored it better. This wasn't guesswork. It was quiet, learned science passed down through generations who knew exactly what a failed fire meant. A damp log could choke a hearth. A poorly stacked pile could rot from the inside out, and a single mistake in storage could turn a long winter into a death sentence. Here's where things get interesting. Medieval people understood firewood in ways modern homeowners rarely do. Not romantically, practically, ruthlessly. And once you see how they did it, you'll never look at a woodpile the same way again. Green wood was a silent killer. Freshly cut wood looked solid, heavy, and ready to burn. But, you know, medieval families knew better. Green wood was a trap. Inside every freshly cut log sat a massive amount of water locked into the fibres. Burn it too soon, and, well, the fire wastes its energy boiling moisture instead of producing heat. Medieval households learned this the hard way. Green wood smoked heavily, clogged chimneys with creosote, and produced weak, unreliable heat. In closed winter homes, that smoke wasn't just annoying. It was dangerous. Poor airflow and wet fuel could turn a hearth into a slow poison. So medieval firewood storage began with patience. Wood was cut months, sometimes years, before it was needed. Oak, one of the most valued fuels, could be seasoned for 2 full summers before it ever touched a hearth. This wasn't tradition for tradition's sake. It was survival chemistry learned through bitter experience. Air was more important than shelter. Here's a counterintuitive medieval rule that still shocks people today. Firewood wasn't stored in airtight sheds. It was stored where air could reach it from every side. Moisture was the enemy, and moving air was the weapon. Logs were stacked with deliberate gaps, never pressed tightly together. These spaces weren't mistakes, they were ventilation channels. Wind passing through the pile carried moisture away day after day, slowly transforming wet wood into clean-burning fuel. Roofed wood piles were common, but walls were often left open. In many regions, firewood leaned against exterior house walls under extended eaves, protected from rain but fully exposed to airflow. Medieval builders understood that trapping wood indoors too early caused mould, rot, and insect infestation. This wasn't folklore. It was applied environmental science learned long before thermodynamics had a name. Ground contact meant rot and ruin. One of the fastest ways to destroy firewood was to let it touch the ground. Soil moisture, you know, crept upward into logs, feeding fungi and insects. Medieval families didn't need microscopes to understand the outcome. Wood stored directly on earth burned poorly and, well, crumbled faster. So they lifted it, Stones, old beams, split logs laid crosswise, or purpose-built wooden racks kept firewood off the soil. Even in poorer households, some form of elevation was, honestly, non-negotiable. This small detail mattered more than volume. A smaller pile of dry, elevated wood provided more usable heat than a massive pile slowly rotting from below. Medieval storage prioritized quality over quantity because winter punished waste brutally. Orientation was a calculated choice. Firewood stacks weren't placed randomly. Orientation really mattered. In many regions, wood piles face prevailing winds to maximize drying. And, south-facing stacks captured sunlight during those short winter days, which accelerated seasoning even in cold climates. Sun exposure wasn't about warmth alone. Ultraviolet light actually discouraged mold and insects. Medieval households noticed that sun-facing stacks stayed cleaner, lighter, and, easier to split later. Different woods had different futures. Medieval firewood storage wasn't one-size-fits-all. Different woods were treated differently, and families knew exactly why. Softwoods like pine and fir, dried faster but burned quickly and produced sparks. Hardwoods like oak and beech burned longer, but, they demanded longer seasoning. As a result, wood piles were often divided. Fast-burning woods were kept accessible for quick heat or for starting a fire. Dense hardwoods were protected carefully, saved for the coldest months when steady, lasting heat really mattered most. Firewood was counted like food. One of the most revealing medieval habits was how carefully firewood was measured. Not weighed, but counted in cords, cartloads, or stacked lengths. Families knew how much wood a winter consumed because, honestly, they had lived through shortages before. Wood was stacked neatly not for aesthetics, but for inventory. A clean stack told a clear story. How much remained, how fast it was disappearing, whether rationing needed to begin. Indoor storage was a final step, not the first. Only fully seasoned wood entered the home. Bringing wet logs inside invited mould, insects and, damp air into living spaces. The hearth area itself became a drying station, not a storage dump. Logs were placed close enough to warmth to finish drying, but never so close they risked ignition. This balance was learned through practice and respected with care. This was survival science, not tradition. It's easy to romanticize medieval life. But firewood storage wasn't folklore or ritual. It was hard-earned knowledge built on loss, cold nights, and lessons paid for in suffering. Families who mastered firewood storage lived warmer, healthier winters. Their food lasted longer. Their homes stayed safer. Their children survived. And here's the real twist. These principles still work. Modern technology hasn't changed how wood behaves. Moisture still steals heat. Airflow still dries fuel. Elevation still prevents rot. The physics haven't changed. We've just forgotten to pay attention. In a world obsessed with convenience, medieval firewood storage reminds us that survival often depends on preparation, not abundance. They didn't beat winter with more resources. They beat it with smarter systems. And that's exactly what we explore here.